What if the fate of Middle-earth changed before the story even began? What if the One Ring was never found, hidden deep within the mountains, lost to time? The ring would remain unseen. So before we step into this quiet, darker path, consider subscribing to Nightfall Stories for more calm journeys through Middle-earth. Now, let us imagine what might have been. In the later years of the Third Age, when much of Middle-earth had grown accustomed to long stretches of quiet, there remained in the deep places of a world a thing both small and immeasurably weighty. It was the One Ring. It did not lie upon an open path, nor upon the floor of a tunnel where chance might guide a wandering hand toward it. Instead, it remained where it had long endured, hidden in darkness beneath the mountains, held by a creature whose life had narrowed into a single purpose. There it stayed, unseen, untaken. And so, when Bilbo Baggins passed through those caverns in his unexpected journey, his hand did not fall upon it. He felt no cool metal against his palm. He heard no whisper of something found. The moment passed without notice, and with it, the course of many lives turned quietly away from what might have been. Bilbo emerged from the darkness as he would have done regardless, changed by his travels, yet unburdened by any hidden power. The tale he carried back to the Shire was one of adventure and narrow escape, not of secret possession. Years unfolded across the lands of Middle-earth with a steadiness that seemed, to many, a sign that the great troubles of earlier days had passed beyond return. The great forests held their silence. The rivers kept their courses. The kingdoms of men stood watchful, yet untroubled by any single looming threat. In such a world, the absence of the ring did not announce itself. There was no sudden change. No sign that something vital had been withheld from the unfolding of events. And yet, beneath all things, a difference had taken root. For the ring was not destroyed, nor claimed, nor even known to be near. It endured, as it had always endured, bound to a will that still lingered in the east. But it did not call loudly. It did not stir the world. It simply remained. Far below stone, in a darkness that did not change with the passing of seasons, another life continued its long and solitary course. The creature who bore the ring did not lose it. He did not wander far in search of what had slipped from him. He did not emerge into the wider world with restless hunger. Instead, he stayed, guarding, clinging, his thoughts turned inward, circling the same narrow paths, bound ever more tightly to the small golden thing that had come to define his existence. Thus, the ring was kept. Not hidden by wisdom, not protected by design, but held in a place so removed from the world above that its absence shaped events in ways unseen. Above, no tale began, no quiet inheritance passed from one hand to another. No burden found its bearer, and so a story that might have drawn together many lives, from the smallest to the greatest, did not take form. In its place, the world continued along a quieter path. Yet quiet does not mean without change. For even in stillness, time moves, and the choices that are not made shape the future as surely as those that are. Far to the east, where shadow gathered not in sudden darkness, but in slow and patient growth, a will endured that had once forged the ring and set much of the world upon its course. That will had not forgotten, though it did not yet know where its lost treasure lay. It continued, strengthening, watching, waiting. And because the ring had not been found, it had not been brought into the light. It had not drawn attention. It had not awakened the careful concern of those who might have sought to understand its nature. It remained outside the story of the West, a hidden truth beneath the surface of all things. And so the years passed, unbroken. The Shire remained green. The wise remained watchful, but not alarmed. And the darkness beneath the mountains endured, holding within it a thing that had the power to shape the fate of all, yet lay beyond the reach of any who might have acted against it. Thus began a different telling of Middle-earth, one not marked by sudden journeys or great fellowship, but by the quiet unfolding of a world in which something had been left untouched, and therefore left unresolved. In the western lands of Middle-earth, where the great concerns of kings and councils seldom reached, the Shire lay in a quiet that seemed untouched by the passing of years. There, the hills remained green and gently rounded, their slopes marked by winding paths and small gardens that had grown in careful tending over many generations. Streams ran clear between the fields, and hedgerows divided the land into ordered spaces that felt both natural and long familiar. Morning came softly. Mist would rise from the low places before the sun had fully climbed, drifting across the meadows in pale layers that dissolved as light strengthened. Doors would open, fires would be stirred. The day would begin not with haste, but with a steady and untroubled rhythm. In Hobbiton and the surrounding villages, life continued much as it always had. The absence of the One Ring had left no mark that could be seen. There was no sense of something missing, no whisper of danger avoided. For those who lived there, the world had never been otherwise. And so Frodo Baggins grew into his years without burden. His days were shaped by simple and steady things, the keeping of his home, the quiet pleasures of reading, the long walks taken without destination across the hills. Paths he followed were known to him, not by need, but by familiarity, and each turn in them carried memory rather than uncertainty. He had heard stories, as all hobbits had, tales of distant lands, of elves that still lingered beyond the borders of the Shire, of dwarves who passed rarely and always with purpose, and of Bilbo Baggins, whose journey had carried him far beyond what most would ever see. But these stories remained stories. They did not reach into his life. They did not call him beyond the bounds of the land he knew. Bilbo himself had grown older. His home at Bag End remained warm and well kept, its shelves filled with books and small objects gathered over years that had not been shadowed by any hidden influence. His tales were told with clarity, and though they spoke of strange lands and unexpected encounters, they carried no weight of secrecy. There was no ring to consider, no long reflection upon something found and passed on. When he spoke, it was simply to share what he had seen, nothing more. And so, the bond between Hin and Frodo remained one of affection and quiet companionship, not one shaped by inheritance or unspoken concern. Elsewhere in the Shire, life moved with equal calm. The markets were filled on fair days, laughter arose easily in the evenings, families gathered, spoke, and rested without thought of distant matters. Even the passing of travelers remained rare enough to be noticed, yet not cause for alarm. No dark rider had ever been seen upon its roads. No shadow lingered at its edges. The boundaries of the Shire were not guarded by walls, but by distance and disinterest, for little of what lay there seemed of use to the wider world. Yet, it was precisely this quiet that marked it apart. For while other lands bore the slow and subtle signs of change, the Shire did not. It remained constant. Not through strength, but through absence. The absence of knowledge. The absence of burden. The absence of a single object that might have drawn it into the wider tale of Middle-earth. Even the wise, in their distant watchfulness, gave little thought to the Shire in those days. It was known, remembered, but not considered of great importance. And thus it remained, as it had been said, a place apart, where time moved gently, and where the greater currents of the world passed by without disturbance. Evening would come as softly as morning. Lanterns would be lit, voices would carry through the cooling air, and the stars would appear above the hills, steady and unchanged. Frodo would walk beneath them, sometimes alone, sometimes in quiet company, with no thought that his steps might ever lead beyond those familiar paths. For in this telling, they would not. His life would unfold as many others had before it, measured not by great deeds or distant journeys, but by the simple passage of days well spent. And so the Shire endured, peaceful, untroubled, unaware. A place untouched by the story that had never begun, and therefore untouched also by the choice that might have ended it. Beyond the borders of the Shire, where the quiet life of hobbits unfolded without disturbance, there moved still those who kept a wider watch upon the lands of Middle-earth. Among them was Gandalf, who wandered long roads and seldom remained in one place for many days together. He had walked in many lands. He had spoken with kings and with simple folk alike. He had listened more than he spoke, and where others saw only passing events, he marked patterns that unfolded slowly across years. Yet, in this telling, something did not come to pass. A question that might have arisen did not take form. Gandalf came at times to the Shire, as he had done in years before. His arrival was greeted with quiet curiosity, and often with welcome. Hobbits remembered him not as one who brought warning, but as one who carried stories, and sometimes small wonders that delighted those who saw them. He would sit in Bag End with Bilbo Baggins, speaking long into the evening of distant roads and quiet changes in the world beyond the hills. There was no unease between them. No moment in which a small object was brought forth and examined with growing concern. No memory stirred that would lead to doubt. Bilbo had nothing to show, and so Gandalf had nothing to question. Their conversations remained as they had always been, thoughtful, wandering, and without urgency. He would depart as he arrived, quietly, with no need to return soon, for there was no shadow that called him back. Elsewhere, Gandalf continued his watch. He walked in the north, where old lands lay open beneath wide skies. He passed through the realms of men, where kingdoms endured in cautious strength. He spoke at times with the elves, who perceived more than most, yet even among them, no single concern rose above all others. There were signs in the world. There always were. But they did not gather. They did not point toward one hidden truth. Instead, they remained scattered, unconnected. A road less traveled here, a whisper of unease there, nothing that demanded answer, nothing that compelled pursuit. And so, Gandalf did not search for what had not been found. He did not turn his thought toward a ring long lost. He did not follow trails that had grown cold long before, for no such need arose. The thread remained unseen, not broken, not removed, simply untouched. There were moments, perhaps, when a thought passed briefly through his mind, a sense that something lay unresolved in the deep history of the world. But such thoughts did not linger. They did not take root. For without cause, even the wise did not pursue shadows without form. Thus, a question that might have changed the course of many lives was never asked. And because it was not asked, no answer was sought. And because no answer was sought, no journey began. The long road that would have drawn together many peoples, from the smallest of hobbits to the greatest among men, remained unwalked, not closed, not denied, simply unchosen. Gandalf continued as he had always done, watching, listening, guiding where he might. Yet his path did not turn toward the darkness beneath the mountains, nor toward the hidden bearer of the ring, for that path had never been revealed to him. And so the world moved onward, not in ignorance, but in quiet absence of a single vital knowing. And in that absence, the balance of Middle-earth remained not yet broken, but not yet understood. Far from the quiet lands of the West, beyond the rivers and the fading memory of ancient borders, there rose once more a power that had never wholly passed away. In the dark land of Mordor, beneath a sky often veiled in shadow, the will of Sauron endured. It had not returned suddenly, nor with open force. Its coming had been slow, patient, gathered over many years in secrecy and silence. And though the One Ring had not been found, the strength of its maker did not lie wholly within it. Sauron had learned long ago to endure without it. The ring was his greatest work, bound to his own being, yet not the sum of his power. Without it, he was diminished, but not undone. And so he grew, not in haste, but in certainty. The lands about Mordor stirred under his influence. Old strongholds were reclaimed. Servants gathered. Not in great numbers at first, but steadily, as a tide that rises too slowly to be marked by those who do not watch closely. He sought the ring. This he had never ceased to do. His thought turned toward it often, though it lay beyond his sight, hidden in darkness deeper than his own reach. He knew it endured. He knew it must. Yet its absence from the world of men and elves troubled him in ways that were not easily understood, for he could not find it, and what cannot be found cannot be controlled. Still, He did not delay. He did not wait for its return. Instead, he turned his will toward what lay before him: dominion, order, the slow bending of the world to his design. In other tellings, the recovery of the ring might have hastened his rise, or emboldened him to strike swiftly. But here, in its absence, his path took another form. More measured, more deliberate, he strengthened his realm, extended his reach, prepared for a war not driven by sudden need, but by long intention. Beyond Mordor, shadows lengthened, not as a single darkness sweeping across the land, but as a gradual dimming, a sense, felt in distant places, that something had begun to move again in the east. In the courts of men, there were whispers. In the halls of elves, there was quiet reflection. Among the dwarves, old concerns stirred once more. Yet none could name a single cause. There was no ring revealed, no clear sign upon which all might agree. Only a growing awareness that the world was shifting, that the peace of recent years might not endure. And still, no plan arose to end it. For without the knowledge of the ring, there was no path toward its destruction. No understanding of the one thing that could unmake the will behind the rising shadow. Thus, even as Sauron gathered strength, those who might have opposed him did so without the full knowledge of what they faced. They saw the signs, but not the root. They prepared for war, but not for its ending. And in Mordor, Sauron continued, his gaze turned outward, his purpose steady. He did not yet command all, but he would, given time. And time in this telling was not denied him. For the ring remained hidden, unclaimed, undread. And so the balance of the world began to tilt, not through sudden ruin, but through the quiet certainty of a power that faced no final challenge. In time, the shadow that had long been gathering in the east could no longer remain unseen. From the borders of Mordor, where the will of Sauron had grown patient and strong, movement began. Not in sudden storm, but in steady advance. The lands nearest to that dark realm felt it first. Small outposts were abandoned. Watchful companies withdrew. From places that could no longer be held with certainty, messengers rode westward, bearing tidings that were not yet cries of alarm, but no longer carried the calm of earlier years. And so, the free peoples of Middle-earth prepared. In Gondor, the watch upon the borders was strengthened. The great city of Minas Tirith stood as it had always stood, white and enduring. Yet now its walls were no longer symbols of quiet vigilance alone, but of readiness. Men gathered, arms were taken up. The long habit of peace gave way to the older memory of war. Among them walked Aragorn, who had long labored in the shadows, guarding the lands that few others watched. In this telling, his path was not drawn toward a fellowship, nor guided by the counsel of a ring-bearer. Instead, his years of wandering led him naturally toward the defense of men. He did not seek a crown, nor did he turn aside from the quiet duty he had long accepted. He stood where he was needed, and there he remained. From the woodland realm and the halls of stone, others came. Legolas moved among his kindred, watchful of the darkening forest. Gimli stood among his people, where the memory of ancient wrongs and enduring strength ran deep. They did not meet upon a single road. They did not share a common quest, yet each in their own place took up arms against the same rising shadow. Thus began a war. Not sudden, not bound to a single moment, but unfolding across many lands as each people answered in their own way. Battles were fought, some were won, many were held at great cost. The strength of the West did not fail at once. Nor did it falter without resistance, for courage remained, as it always had. Men stood upon walls, elves held the forests, dwarves defended their halls, and in many places the advance of darkness was checked, turned back for a time. Yet there was something different in this war, something that none could fully name. For every victory, though hard won, did not bring an end. It did not diminish the shadow at its source. It did not weaken the will that drove it forward, for the heart of that power lay elsewhere, and it was untouched. The One Ring remained hidden, beyond reach, beyond knowledge, and so long as it endured, so too did the strength of the one who had made it. Thus, the war became a thing without conclusion. Battles ended, but the war did not. Years might pass in which the West held its ground, in which hope seemed not wholly lost, yet always the shadow returned, renewed, unbroken. For it could not be ended by strength of arms alone. This truth came slowly, not spoken in councils at first, not set down in any clear word, but understood over time by those who watched closely. No moment in which the shadow was cast down and the world restored to lasting peace. Only resistance, only endurance, only the long effort to hold back what could not be wholly undone. And still they fought, for such is the nature of those who stand against darkness, not because victory is certain, but because the alternative cannot be accepted. Yet, in this telling, the road that might have led to an ending remained hidden. And so the war went on, without a final dawn, far beneath the mountains, in caverns where no light of sun or star had ever entered. There remained a life set apart from all the wars and watchfulness of the world above. There dwelt Gollum. Long had he endured in those deep places. Long had he withdrawn from all that moved beneath the open sky. And in this telling, he had never lost what he called his own. The One Ring had not slipped from his grasp. It had not been found by chance. It had not been taken into the light of day. It remained with him, always. His world had narrowed over time, not through sudden change, but through long and quiet turning inward. The caverns he wandered were known to him in every curve and passage. The dark waters, the cold stone, the endless silence, these were his companions. And at the center of it all, the ring. He did not wear it always. Even in his solitude, there remained some dim caution, some instinct that had not entirely faded. Yet he kept it close, held it, spoke to it in the broken way that his thoughts now moved. It was not merely a possession, it was his world. All memory of what he had once been had long since thinned into fragments, scattered, faint, and seldom recalled. The name he had once carried no longer held meaning for him. Only the ring endured in his mind with clarity, bright, precious, unchanging. And so he remained, not seeking, not wandering far, guarding though no one came, keeping watch though none knew what was kept. Above him, the world turned, wars were fought, kingdoms strained against the growing shadow. The will of Sauron stretched outward across the lands of Middle-earth, seeking always what had been lost. Yet it did not find him, not through lack of power, but through distance, through the quiet obscurity of a place so removed from all roads that even the searching thought of Sauron did not reach it clearly. Thus, the ring was kept, not by design, not by wisdom, but by chance and by the slow shaping of one life that had been drawn ever deeper into itself. In time, even Gollum changed further, not in body alone, for that had long since been altered beyond recognition, but in spirit. His thoughts grew narrower, more bound. The world beyond his dark halls faded almost entirely from what little memory he possessed. There was no longing for open air, no memory of stars that stirred him to movement, only the ring and the endless circling of thought around it. In another path he might have wandered, might have been drawn outward by loss, might have played a part in the shaping of events beyond his understanding. But here he remained, hidden, forgotten, a keeper without purpose beyond his own need. And so a strange thing came to pass. The ring, which had been forged to rule and to return, was held in a place where it could do neither. It did not come back to its maker. It did not pass into new hands. It did not move the world. It endured, untouched by the struggles above, unseen by those who sought it. In this, there was a kind of stillness, a pause in the great design. Yet it was not peace. For while the ring remained hidden, the power that had made it continued to grow elsewhere, and the one who held it could not unmake it, could not destroy it, could not even conceive of such a thing. Thus the fate of Middle-earth rested, unknowingly, in the grasp of a creature lost to all purpose but possession. A fragile balance, a quiet, hidden contradiction. The greatest danger of the age, kept safe only by being lost. And so, beneath the mountains, in darkness that did not change, Gollum remained, watching nothing, guarding everything. So it came to pass, in the slow unfolding of years, that the fate of Middle-earth did not turn upon a single deed, nor hinge upon the courage of one small bearer. The path that might have led to an ending remained hidden, and in its place, another age began to take shape. Not suddenly, not in fire or in final ruin, but in a long and quiet diminishing. The wars that had risen from the shadow of Mordor did not cease. They changed. They shifted. At times, the West held strong. At times, the darkness pressed further. Cities endured, then faltered. Borders were drawn, defended, and slowly redrawn again. Victory came, but never wholly. Defeat came, but never entirely. For the will of Sauron was not broken. It endured, sustained by a power that had not been undone. The One Ring remained, hidden, unclaimed, and therefore unchallenged. Among men, a change began to be felt, not at once, not ever, but slowly across generations. The long hope of final victory, of a day when the shadow might be lifted entirely, began to fade. In its place came a quieter resolve, to endure, to hold what could be held, to pass on what might be preserved. For even without victory, life continued. Children were born, fields were tended, stories were told, not of triumph, but of perseverance. And in such things, a different kind of strength took root. Among the elves, the change was deeper still, for they perceived more clearly the passing of time and the slow turning of the world away from what it had once been. Their realms remained fair for a time, yet even there, a fading began, not through destruction, but through departure. For the long defeat, as some came to name it, did not come as a single blow. It came as a quiet understanding that the world could not be restored to what it had been. And so many chose to leave, not in haste, not in fear, but in acceptance. Their ships departed from the gray havens, passing westward beyond the sight of Middle-earth, carrying with them memory, song, and all that could not endure unchanged. The dwarves held their halls, the forests stood, the rivers flowed. Yet everywhere, in ways both seen and unseen, the world moved toward a different state. Not broken, not wholly lost, but altered. Diminished in one sense, deepened in another. And far to the west, in the quiet land of the Shire, life continued as it always had, untroubled by the greater currents, untouched by the knowledge of what had been withheld. There, the hills remained green, the seasons turned, and the small lives of hobbits passed in peace, unaware that the fate of all lands had once turned upon a thing that had never come to them. It was, perhaps, a strange mercy that such a place could endure, even as the wider world changed. And beneath the mountains, where no wind stirred and no light fell, Gollum remained. With the ring, unknowing of the part he held, unknowing of the fate he preserved. A final silence lay over that hidden place, not of ending, but of suspension. For so long as the ring endured, so too did the shadow. Yet so long as it remained hidden, the world was spared its full return. Thus, Middle-earth entered a twilight, not of sudden darkness, but of long endurance. A world in which no final victory came, but neither did utter ruin. A world that continued, changed, carried forward those who lived within it, but with a quiet continuation. Rules. And so the years passed in Middle-earth, where the shadow endured, yet did not fall, and where the light remained, though never wholly triumphant, in a world shaped not by a single choice, but by the path that was never taken, and the story that never began.